In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a big recap of September as we're kind of getting those final numbers in for how September did. Talking about some big cooldowns that are on the way. We're seeing a major cold front and then potentially afterwards a major Arctic blast, which will be coming from Canada, a lot more extreme as far how below normal those temperatures could be. Of course, using the words like could, and perhaps this is something that is not guaranteed to happen as we're taking a look at the pretty long range, but it is definitely interesting to look at and a possibility. So for those of you that are hoping for cold and snow as we head into the late fall into the winter, these are the types of things we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking a look at these long range looks, and they don't pan out every time, as you guys know, but there's a lot of people that don't talk about it at all, and then it's 5 days away and all of a sudden, surprise, there's a cooldown maybe happening. But everybody's kind of already known that it was a possibility for 10, 15, 20 days. It's just nobody really wants to talk about it. Anyway, that's my spiel for today. Let's dive into things and take a look at the past 7 days of temperature anomalies, and you can see that we did have some neutral to below normal, a little bit above normal in there in some spots as well, from Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, southern Missouri, into northern Mississippi, Alabama, western Tennessee, a lot of Louisiana in there. Very near normal temperatures for this area. Also, the Pacific Northwest into western Canada there has been below normal as well. And then we've had this massive warm area from the kind of southwestern Hudson Bay straight down through the northern plains into the Four Corner states here. We've dealt with the highest above normal temperatures for this area pretty much of anywhere. And then the eastern states like the Ohio Valley, the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, the northeast, eastern Canada here, the mid-Atlantic as well, New England. We've seen all of these areas be a few degrees above average. It's very close to normal, just a couple of degrees above. Typically this is, I would call this the difference that you wouldn't feel if you walked outside. When it's within about 5 degrees, especially when we're looking at a 7-day average here. Likely a few of those days were cooler than this. A couple of those days were warmer than this. So it has been a little bit up and down, but over the course of those 7 days, it hasn't been necessarily hot for most areas. So what we're going to do here is take a look at the entire month of September now, because we have through September 30th, and this is the numbers. This is the official numbers. Above normal again, especially in these Four Corner state areas, up through the Pacific Northwest, up through the northern plains and upper Midwest, where we probably had the warmest temperatures for all of September. And then again, the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, interior, mid-Atlantic, and northeast, we did have these slightly above normal temperatures in here. And then we dealt with very close to normal conditions to even below normal conditions for most of the south central, deep south, southeast, even up the mid-Atlantic and southern New England coast there, where it was very, very close to average. Overall, mostly a warmer month in the west, and then a pretty close to normal month in the east, unless you're in the far north there where it was above normal for some of those areas as well. Here is the total snowfall. Hasn't changed. We're not really going to dive into that. I just wanted to show it on screen in case you're curious, but it hasn't changed in days. Here is the past 7 days. We're going to keep it this way until we're about at October 14th or so, and then we'll probably move up to the 14-day average. So we're going to try to get month to date precipitation anomalies as well here. They don't have an actual product for that, so we're gonna have to manually kind of do the day ranges, but we do have a 30-day period one. So at the end of October, we will be able to look back and see the entire month at the end of it. And we do see that we obviously had far above average precipitation where our hurricane struck and unfortunately brought devastating flooding to some of these areas. Really dry outside of that. I mean, we had a little bit of above normal precipitation for New England, and then really dry outside of those areas. So let's take a look here at the European model and just kind of dive into some of these storms. And I'm not going to lie, the activity is a little bit dwindled, I would say. I think that's a soft way to put it, but we have a little bit of a trough out west there, a bit of a ridge here across these areas where they've been warmer. So the warmer are getting even warmer here. Some storminess, some cooler air for the Pacific Northwest. This does happen from time to time. And then we have this slightly descending trough throughout the east that will bring neutral temperatures. A lot of what we've been seeing here. The only precipitation to discuss outside of the Northwest is going to be the Gulf, where we do have some thunderstorms and showers kind of extending up the southeast here. pretty common pattern. We will still be watching for potential tropical development in the Gulf, but obviously this has not taken off. Chances are slightly decreasing, and a lot of good news and really good reason to believe that maybe we're not going to see tropical development here. That's not to say let your guard down entirely. We're good. But there is good news, and we're going to continue to monitor it until that chance is at zero, as everybody should do, obviously. If the chance is 1% of seeing something even close to what we just saw, although it's really not. That was like a once in a thousand year flood for North Carolina. I looked at the numbers today. Some specific locations, it's a once in a 1,000-year plus flood. A lot of areas, it's like a 500-year flood. And then almost throughout the entire western North Carolina corridor there for the mountainous areas, it's basically a 100-year flood for those areas. And what I mean by that, for those of you that don't know, is it likely only occurs about every 100 years for all of those areas. And again, some of them, it's estimated, because we can't know it for sure, obviously, but 1,000+ years for a type of flood like that to happen. Absolutely devastating. But still, these areas that got struck with the strongest storm surge and wind down in Florida, we don't want any tropical development. So the point being, if there's a 1% chance, you should still keep your eyes open and definitely be paying attention a little bit. Obviously, concern isn't that high at that point, but definitely need to be watching it always. We do have a stronger low across northern Canada, of all places, versus the Gulf of Mexico, where we're failing to take off, funny enough. 989 there over south central Canada, and this is allowing for a ridge to develop out west, a little bit of a trough in the central states, and then kind of a interesting mini ridge that is trying to take place to the east of it that could actually expand over the coming days, because that's typically what we see ahead of these stronger low pressure systems. So that's the overall pattern here. Again, minimal precipitation over the United States, and then Sunday we actually do get a very strong cold front look with warmer air out ahead of it. I'd be watching for thunderstorm activity along that entire cold front. And just to backtrack with you guys, upper Midwest here, Saturday afternoon on the 5th, definitely a chance of severe weather and thunderstorms overall. Saturday into Sunday across all of Wisconsin, Michigan, and then eventually past the Great Lakes for states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. We could be looking at Sunday the 6th into the 7th, some thunderstorms and severe weather, even reaching New England by Monday. What we're kind of left with after all of that is this little bit of a more severe cold front look. Like I mentioned, this is a pretty decent trough, and it is coming in the form of a cold front. There is some Arctic influence as well, but mostly coming as the result of that cold front. And this is a very, very significant one. Obviously, the storms along it, we saw it looks very organized. So for one thing, that's an intense look for a cold front. But not only that, this air mass that takes place after it is a severe ridge pattern in the west, severe trough in the east. So definitely an impactful one. Still watching this moisture out here in the Gulf. Again, that needs to continue to be monitored. Tuesday, we have a very, very weak low out there in the Gulf. Still nothing major, obviously. Still cold in the east by Tuesday, warmer out west. Let's take a look at Wednesday, and we get a little bit of a resurgence where we get this kind of like recycled cold air wanting to head down the east coast. We talked about this yesterday, but those backdoor cold fronts where it wants to head kind of east of the Appalachian Mountain Range, we'll be watching that here in a moment. We do have this low pressure system now off the east coast of Florida, maybe watching the southeast corridor for tropical development here in October. Obviously an area that is usually pretty favorable for development this time of year. We'll be watching that closely, of course, but it does move off innocently, at least in this model run. Thursday the 10th here, we do have precipitation with very cool temperatures. Wouldn't be surprised if we actually ended up with some overnight snow here in eastern Canada into maybe even New England. If that looks a little bit colder over the coming days, that would be for mountainous areas, by the way. So like we're talking northern Vermont areas, the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and maybe northern Maine, maybe the Adirondacks, but these are areas where people don't really live. I'm talking mountaintop locations here. We end the model run here rather quiet Friday into Saturday, so we're going to glance past that. Here is the GFS model. Really not seeing too much different here. We kind of struggle to see that tropical system develop. Doesn't really get going. Here's that major cold front, which is equally major here, maybe a little bit more, as we actually do get snowfall on this model run. Again, we're very close to potential snowfall in eastern Canada. Wouldn't be amazed if, we saw some snowfall here for the mountainous New England areas, like I mentioned. There it is, actually, right there. So this is kind of doing exactly what I was expecting to be possible. Wednesday on the 9th, they're seeing some mountainous snowfall for New England. It is that time of year. Typically October, we start to get that mountainous New England snowfall. And here comes another doozy. This is Sunday into Monday, 13th into 14th. 997 there south of the Hudson Bay. Severe cold front once again. Strong thunderstorms along it likely. And we have snowfall moving into Minnesota with this extreme blast of cold air. Keep in mind, very warm air surging out west. This is a strong positive PNA look, which makes this all possible. And then we have this surging warmth out ahead of all of this as well, which makes this severe weather and thunderstorm threat very, very plausible as well. And look at this one. We're seeing some snowfall throughout Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. And then we get this really, really solid cold air mass that just sits over the eastern states there for a couple of days. That's the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and it's out of there. And then we're kind of left back in a typical pattern. Very interesting. We'll look at the temperatures in a minute, but the precipitation, very underwhelming. Above normal amounts probably for the Gulf and Florida, a little bit of the coast there, but that's probably it for the lower 48. Actually, I lied, you know what I mean? There's actually a little bit here of Washington with some above average precipitation, a little bit of California, actually, northern California, and a tiny bit of Maine as well. But outside of that, we're looking at the Gulf states and Florida for above normal precipitation. Look at how dry this look is. The areas that I've drawn on screen are the areas we could pinpoint for potential average to above average precipitation. Everywhere else, much, much drier. Very interesting. Let's take a look at the total snowfall, and still rather underwhelming here by October 2nd here on this model run that we're looking at. This is through the 12th, and we see the Cascades getting a couple inches maybe. Same story in the Rockies, and really not much else outside of that. As we take a look at the GFS model's total snowfall, though, for reference, we do get the same Cascades and Rocky snowfall, but we actually get the Midwest in there with a couple of inches. And again, mountainous New England there a little bit as well, maybe a dusting if anything. But a lot of areas in south central and eastern Canada, they're seeing their first accumulating snowfall here. Sign of the times as we move deeper into the fall, these areas are going to become very, very snowy. Still not down to your highly populated areas at all. We're still seeing these very far southern Canadian areas very snowless at this point, but it's getting awfully close, and we're going to be talking about you guys seeing snowfall very, very soon, I suspect. As we take a look at the temperature anomalies, let's take a look at this stronger cold front that moves through. Again, we get warmer before we get cooler, but look at that cold front. I mean, that's pretty significant for just a cold front. Again, a little bit of Arctic influence as it dives down, but mostly this is just a cold front. And we are seeing very warm temperatures out west, which we always talk about being that first puzzle piece to these big eastern cooldowns. Again, Monday into Tuesday, 7th to 8th. We're seeing the blues here, which are about 1 to 10 degrees below normal. Obviously, if you're in like the 5 to 10 degrees below normal, which would be the darker blues, you're probably feeling it. It's a chillier day than typical. The lighter blues, probably not feeling it too much. It probably just feels average. And then the greens is where we're at 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is definitely significant. So for the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and Southeastern Canada, including the Toronto area and areas just to the north, we are feeling a significant cool down compared to what's typical this time of year, and you will definitely feel that if it ends up this way. As you can see, this actually lasts a while for the East Coast. Just like in September, we see this cooler air kind of holding on for some of these areas for days at a time. This is already Thursday the 10th here. As we keep going, we see cooler air hanging on for dear life. It eventually warms up by like the weekend, I would say, as we reach kind of Friday, Saturday there. But that's right when we have this next Arctic blast right in line. This is Tuesday on the 15th. Again, the blues are a little less significant, but the greens are definitely very far below normal. We see a lot of that for the Midwest, down through the Ohio Valley, and even into a bit of the western Mid-Atlantic here. Again, what is the key puzzle piece here? Very, very warm out west. This is almost always going to be present when you see a colder air mass like that in the east, and sure enough, it's there this time just like it is every time. This one actually wants to hang around. This is Tuesday the 15th. Here's Wednesday the 16th. Here's Thursday the 17th. Again, hanging on for the east. Friday the 18th. This is the very, very end of the model run, and we still have a little bit of cooler temperatures left over for the East Coast. And I mean, hey, if it goes this way, we're likely to see the East Coast deal with another at least near normal October, if not below normal, especially in these areas that are certainly holding on to the cold for dear life every single time it moves in. Super, super interesting. Let's take a look here at the tropics. We do have Hurricane Kirk out there looking very intense, actually rapidly intensifying as we speak as well. And then we have Tropical Depression 13 out there, which we will take a look at the cone forecast for. And then we have this area, again, 0% chance over the next 48 hours. This one keeps getting pushed back, which is another good sign that we're not going to really see this one develop. And then through the next 7 days, we're still stuck at 40%. Likely, I suspect we'll stick around there unless something changes drastically and it starts to look like it's really going to get its act together. There's nothing new under the sun, but I definitely feel like this one has been pushed back, and I have a good feeling that this one most likely won't dissipate. That's not to say that it won't, and again, I'm very concerned, especially about this area, so after what they've just been through, so I will continue to monitor it every single day, but I have a good feeling. Just the opposite of what I felt about the last one. The last one, I had a terrible feeling from the get-go, if you guys remember. I thought it was just going to be a devastating storm as it was. This time around, I'm really feeling like this one is going to struggle and not really develop. But time will tell. Hopefully, I'm right, obviously, but we'll just have to see. Here's the cone forecast for Hurricane Kirk, and this one is right now at 90-mile-per-hour sustained winds. We might have even gotten an update. I'll refresh this. We haven't, but it's expected to be a major hurricane by 2 p.m. tomorrow on Thursday, so this one should continue to develop quite rapidly, staying that way until about Sunday before it kind of lowers back down to a typical hurricane, which would be category 2 or 1, and it stays that way by Monday as well as it's racing to the northeast, as you can see. That's just a 24-hour period in between every single one, and it is flying, so definitely getting faster as it moves northward. They actually typically do that. Here's Tropical Depression 13, which, believe it or not, is expected to become a tropical storm very soon, as it's already 4 miles per hour away from being a tropical storm. Not only that, it is expected to be a hurricane by time we're reaching the weekend. So another hurricane, and this one is a little bit more of a question mark. Hopefully it curves to the north just like we've seen the rest of these storms do, and basically innocently fizzle out over the ocean. But this, you never know when one's just going to keep heading towards the Caribbean or the United States. So we'll keep watching this day over day. Anyway, we do upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.